You were in an accident, you were injured, it was somebody else's fault, and your health insurance paid for a lot of the medical bills related to your accident. And now you want to know, why do you have to pay them back? We're going to talk about it on Monday Morning Lawyer. Good morning and happy June, everybody out there. This is your accident and injury guy, Jobeth Bowers, coming at you with a question that I think I've touched on in the past, but it's a question that I get very regularly. So I'm bringing it back up again, and we're going to get right to the point here. And it has to do with health insurance and health insurance as it relates to auto accident claims. Now, when I say health insurance, I'm talking about private health insurance. I'm talking about Medicaid through the state. I'm talking about Medicare through the federal government, all sorts of these different plans. It doesn't matter. The rules, while they're a little bit different from one to the other, the concept is still very, very similar in the sense and in the way that it applies to your accident case. So we're going to get into that because a lot of times, one of the big questions that I get at the end of these cases is, why are we paying back my health insurance company? And I don't want to say it happens in every single one of these cases, but it happens a lot. And when it comes to the government-backed insurances, whether it be Medicaid or Medicare, the answer to the question is the slight deviation between this and private health insurance. The answer to that question is that by statute, by law, you are obligated to. In fact, these the government entities that run Medicare and Medicaid have every right under the law, if you don't pay them back, to sue you and get the money back. Private health insurance companies, a little bit different. The right that they have comes from the contract that you sign when you enroll in the health insurance, whether it's an individual plan, whether it's a group plan. You've probably never even seen the language of the contract that applies to this, because most people never read that. And a lot of times, if it's a group plan, you don't actually, your employer signed for that right. Your employer may even be part of funding the health insurance plan, and therefore they are the ones that have the interest indirectly with you getting that money back. Now, a lot of people will look at this and say, hey, then why am I using my health insurance? And it's a great question. There's more than one contract at play when you're using health insurance. We've talked briefly here about the contract that obligates you to reimburse them if and only if somebody else was at fault for the accident and you receive a recovery from that accident, from insurance or otherwise. If you are at fault for the accident and your health insurance pays, you don't have to pay them back. If you get sick, having nothing to do with an accident, your health insurance pays, you don't have to pay them back. You just keep paying your premiums, which are, if it's an employer-based plan, or just being deducted from payroll, or maybe your employer's even paying for it. When it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, those are obviously a different ball of wax. As far as premiums, Medicaid, usually there are none. Medicare, it varies. A lot of that is income-based. But what are the other contracts that are at play here? Well, these insurance companies, all of them, have a contract, or when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, are subject to the statutory provisions and reimbursement rates that, for lack of a better term, negotiate the medical bills and the amount that's actually being paid. And the importance of that negotiation is that your obligation to reimburse is based on what the health insurance company paid out, not what the bill was. So let's take an MRI, for example. An MRI might cost $2,000. Really depends on where you go, different states, different regions, different types of procedures, whether they're different body parts or with or without contrast, open MRIs, closed MRIs, the stand up or the sit up ones, all can be a little bit different. But we're going to use that $2,000 number mark. That bill, if you get that MRI, if it's $2,000, when your attorney, are going to take this case either to negotiate it with an insurance company or take it to court and either submit this bill to a judge or to a jury, depending on which court we're in, we're submitting the entire bill. However, let's say you have Medicare or Medicaid, there is a schedule, a fee schedule, statutory pricing that says, hey, for that procedure code, and when it comes to the private health insurance, it's just in a contract. It's not in a statute, but it works the same way. I don't care what you bill. This is what the insurance company says. I don't care what you bill your cash patients. This is what we're paying you. And that number, depending on the plan and depending on the company, usually somewhere between $300 to $500, not the $2,000. And I've seen MRI bills even higher. I've seen MRI bills as high as $4,000. It doesn't matter. That reimbursement rate on their back end contract between the health provider or the MRI company, and this works with every doctor. I'm just using an example of an MRI because those are numbers that are not so all over the place other than the pricing. Again, I've seen pricing for an MRI as low as $1,000, as high as $4,000, and very, very many different numbers in between. The reimbursement rate is going to be the same. It's regionally specific. So what the reimbursement rate here in Maryland might be could be different than the reimbursement rate in Mississippi or Kansas or California. Okay. So within the zip code, within the region, that reimbursement rate, if there were 3 MRI facilities sitting side by side by side, which Elkton's not big enough for that, Cecil County's not big enough for that, but bear with me. If there were 3 of them side by side by side, and the first one charged $2,000, and the second one charged $3,000, and the third one charged $4,000, and they all sent that bill to the exact same health insurance company, whatever that plan says, $400, $350, whatever, that's what the reimbursement's going to be. So when it comes to paying back the health insurance company, you're only paying that small number out of your settlement, and our office is going to negotiate that because we effectively did the work to get your health insurance company paid back. When it comes to Medicare and Medicaid, there are statutory provisions that we just churn those numbers of what your settlement is and what the other expenses are and what the attorney's fees are and what that lien is. That's what we refer to it as their right to get the money back as a lien, into this formula and say, this is what we're paying you. And then they say, okay, assuming that we did the math right, of course. And that's it. A lot of times that ends up being a 25, 30% discount, sometimes even more. And with the private health insurance company, there's no hard and fast equation or formula, but we work off of those base numbers and say, hey, this would be reasonable. Sometimes it's the percentage of the attorney's fees that they're like, hey, you did the work. Instead of us paying you, your client gets a discount. And we're A-okay with that because my end game goal is to put my clients in as best of a position possible at the end of these things. And that oftentimes means A, get all the bills paid, B, put as much money as possible in my client's pocket. Ugh. Monday morning, took a week off from the podcast. I can't speak anymore. It's okay. I'll survive. This is a good thing. All of this is a good thing because A, when we're making sure this happens, we're also making sure you don't get sued 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line. Because if you tell these people to kick rocks, they can and they will sue you. So you don't want that. Secondly, that health insurance payment, depending on the plan, many times is payment in full. Now, sometimes there's a copay, sometimes there's a deductible, sometimes there's a co-insurance. But for the most part, especially if we're talking about Medicaid, it is payment in full. So if that bill amount was $3,000 and the reimbursement is $400, you, the injured person, just got a $2,600 discount before we negotiate the reimbursement to Medicaid and to the state. That's a big win for you because, as I said before, that full bill, the whole $3,000, is going to be submitted to an insurance company, auto insurance company, for the purposes of settlement, submitted to a judge, submitted to a jury if we're in litigation, if we have to take it to court. They consider that there are jury instructions here in Maryland that tell them that they have to consider the full amount of that bill, even if that invoice shows payments, shows adjustments and discounts and reductions and everything like that. They still have to consider the full amount of the bill. Now, there could be arguments made that the bill was too high or whatever. That's a total different ball of wax. But you, generally speaking, get credit for that full bill in consideration of what the case is going to resolve for, what the settlement's going to be. This means more money for you. The bigger the discount, the bigger the money that you put in your pocket is. It's very, very simple math. So paying back the health insurance company initially seems like, why do I got to pay money? But if you compare, let's say we're just talking about that MRI, us paying back $300 after we negotiate that discount versus paying $3,000, which would you rather pay out of your settlement? Big difference, because the bill has to get paid. We can't just say, hey, goodbye. And a lot of people ask that question, well, isn't the other insurance company supposed to pay that bill? Yes, that's what your settlement is. Your settlement encompasses those bills, all of them, attorney's fees, any sort of expenses, pain and suffering, all of it. It just confuses people sometimes because it's just one number, one lump sum number that isn't broken down. When the insurance company sends a check, let's say we settle a case for $100,000, they're not going to say, hey, 28,412 of this is for medical and 33,000 of this is for attorney's fees and another, 40,000 of this is for pain and suffering. They don't break it down that way. We just negotiate. We talk about that when I'm negotiating this claim or another attorney in my office is negotiating the claim with the insurance company, but it's never going to be itemized. It's not the way that it works. So that's all we have for this week. So use your health insurance. It's a benefit to you. You have paid for it. Sure, they might need to be reimbursed. But here's the other thing. If somehow you're at fault for this accident or you've contributed to this accident and we can't recover money for you, now your bills have been paid. Because if not, sure, my office works on a contingency fee. I only get paid. My office only gets paid if we win. But the doctors, they need to get paid. They don't work on the same deal that we do. So using your health insurance when you can guarantees that bill is going to get paid. It's going to get paid timely. As long as everybody's doing their job as far as recording the payments properly, you don't have to worry about anything going to collections. The worst that you're going to be responsible for is copays, co-insurance, and otherwise. Before we kick off here, I want to let everybody know about something coming up this weekend. This Saturday is Rising Sun's Sunfest. Okay, this is the 45th year, I believe, that they've done Sunfest. And I want to talk to you about one of their sponsors, Grocery Outlet. Okay, Grocery Outlet is not only sponsoring Sunfest, but they are sponsoring the hypnosis show that's going to be on the entertainment stage. And somebody who participates in that show is going to win next Saturday at Sunfest. So make sure you're going to the hypnosis show. I think it's at 11 o'clock on the entertainment stage. Grocery Outlet, as part of their sponsorship, is going to be sending someone from that show on a shopping spree at the Grocery Outlet where you can get up to $500 in free groceries. One person's going to win. That is the Grocery Outlet that's here in Elkton. They will be at Sunfest in Rising Sun. It's a fantastic opportunity to make sure you find on the map that entertainment stage. Encourage somebody that you know, or maybe it's you yourself, to participate in that hypnosis show, because somebody that's part of that show is going to win this shopping spree up to $500 worth of groceries from the Grocery Outlet here in Elkton. So check that out. That is more than all the time that I have for you this week. It's been fantastic coming back after taking the Memorial Day week off. We are into the warmer weather here, although there have been frost warnings out in Western Maryland. Pretty wild. I don't know what's going on here, but be safe out there. Be well. Be kind to others. We'll see you next week.